Welcome to the 2021 District Coordinators Training for Title II Part A grants. This webinar is structured into 4 parts. We do encourage you to stop the video at any time to take notes and or jot down any questions you may have, and to be sure to contact anyone on the Title II Part A team with any questions or concerns that you may have. The first thing we're going to look at is the intent of Title II Part A. What does the law say specifically these funds are for? Talk about what expenditures are allowable within this grant. Think about some considerations for you as you prepare your Title II Part A application and budget. And then finally, just look over a few things within the GMAP application. So the intent of Title II is technically support for effective instruction, and that can be achieved in 3 ways: increasing student achievement, improving educator effectiveness, and or making sure the students with the highest needs are served by the most effective teachers. It is a supplemental grant, meaning it needs to be above and beyond what your district currently does to meet those needs. If there's ever any question in terms of supplementing or supplant, think about the answers to these 4 questions, and one of those is it reasonable? Is it practical? What you're asking to be funded, is this something that needs to happen to impact your plan and what you are providing for staff and students? Is it allocable? Are sound accounting and practices in place? Is it distributed evenly over the district? Is it necessary? Is this something that really needs to be in place in order to make your program implementation successful? And then the final thing is it documented? Do you have documented evidence that these things are in place and this is what these funds are being spent on? You basically can just ask yourself the question, if you didn't have the funds, would you still be able to find a way to pay for it? And if you can say yes to this, then that could possibly be a supplanting issue. These funds need to be used above and beyond what the district is already doing. So the Title II intent typically falls within these 5 areas, and that is professional learning, teacher recruitment, career pathways, equitable distribution of educators, and then finally teacher retention. Professional learning is certainly a big component of educator effectiveness and supporting effective educators, but any type of professional learning that is funded through Title II, you want to make sure that it meets these criteria. You'll see a little later that this is the federal definition of what professional learning should be, but it is also Kentucky's criteria for professional learning. So when you are looking for this for the district, ask yourself these questions. Is this a needs-based event? Is it embedded within the work? Can it be sustained beyond this? It's not just a one-time training. Is there evidence to support that it's effective? Does it have data to support it? And also, is it focused on the classroom and subsequent instruction beyond just the training? Also note that this includes any staff that contributes to the well-rounded education of students. So this is not just classroom teachers. This includes principals, counselors, paraeducators, ESL staff, GT staff, anyone that participates in a child's education. 2 other big components of Title II Part A funding include teacher recruitment and retention. And a lot of times we put those together and they are very similar, but they can also stand alone. So when you think about recruitment, is this a need in your district? If so, Title II Part A funds can help with this in terms of pay differentials, signing bonuses. You can pay for praxis tests for new teachers that are hired into your district, different ways of supporting them, which also goes hand in hand with retention, providing strong induction and mentoring programs so that the mentoring can be a way an experienced teacher can share their expertise. Title II funds can pay a stipend for that. And it also helps in the recruitment of new teachers by partnering them with an effective experienced teacher. Career pathways is another component of Title II Part A, and that is providing programs and funding for programs that will help teachers who want to go a little further in their career, but also want to remain in the classroom. Mostly we see this through coaching programs, but again, it can be in the form of stipends for teacher leaders or mentors, teachers that want to share their expertise with others in the district by leading professional learning experiences or leading PLCs. Equitable distribution of effective educators is also a very important component, and that is using funds to ensure that effective teachers are working with the students with the most need. And this sometimes can be seen through, again, the strong induction, but also mentoring programs. If you have teachers working in a higher poverty school, make sure you're providing them with the support that they may need to work in that school, and also strategically placing teachers and administrators within the district. Class size reduction is another part of Title II Part A. We want to point out that this needs to be supplemental, and it's not just a way to hire a teacher in case there's an allocation shortage. Recently, we have learned that anyone hired for class size reduction staff needs to be deemed effective by the district before placing them in that role. So this would not be an appropriate position for a new teacher or an emergency certified staff member. So they need to have a valid certificate in the area, grade level, content where they're assigned. If you have used class size reduction staff in the past, we ask that you upload evidence into GMAP to ensure that they are effective and that the class size reduction staff has indeed worked towards student achievement. So this is just a very condensed look at some allowable activities in Title II Part A and what we typically see the most of in the applications. And then this is a list of non-allowable expenditures, and I would like you just to take a look at those for just a second. So curriculum development and assessment development, data analysis, those are all very important things that need to happen in a school district on a regular basis, but they're unallowable for Title II Part A because they're normal district functions. So that would be considered a supplanting issue. Providing training for staff on how to do these things is allowable, but just the act of doing these on a regular basis is not. The other thing that we see a lot of that we wanted to mention is expenditures for materials. Materials that are necessary for Title II funded trainings, Title II funded induction programs and things, those are allowable because they're directly related to the expenditures for professional learning. But just general supplies and, materials that are not directly associated with that are not allowable. And then also materials for students, those are not allowable under Title II Part A funds. They are certainly allowable under other grants, but not Title II Part A. Again, if you ever have any questions on allowable and unallowable expenditures, please don't hesitate to contact one of us on the team. And again, you always want to ask yourself, is this a reasonable expenditure and is it necessary? Title II Part A considerations is just a list of things that over the course of time we, the Title II consultants, have noticed and learned. And we say that in a very positive way, that through monitoring, through work with the federal government, through reading through things, these are things that are ongoing that we learn along the way, and we wanted to share them with you. Very important to think about is your needs assessment. And that is a quote from President Eisenhower, but it's a very timeless quote, in that it is as important today as it was then, and that is the importance of planning. So think about how you currently plan for your Title II Part A program, and we're going to give just a few ideas on that if perhaps you don't have a plan in place, or if you would like to maybe make adjustments to your plan. So it's it seems kind of simple once you look at it, but when we have monitored, we typically find that when there's not a solid plan in place, that's when there sometimes adjustments need to be made along the way. And of course, unforeseen things happen, but it should all start with a pretty solid plan. So you can simply do that by looking at data and using that data to determine where your district is now, or when you sit down to think about that. So, what does it show? You also are getting input from your shareholders. So what are staff members saying? What are your parents saying? What are your community members say? What do they, besides the, concrete data that you have, what are they saying that they see in terms of, your district's program? Once you get that information, think about where you want to be. You know where you are now, so you've gotten this input, you've got the data in front of you. What do we need to do? What's our priorities, and what are our needs? It all really does boil down to the needs. When we look at Title II intent, is professional learning in literacy the biggest need for the district? If it's not, then that may not be the best use of your funds. Is recruitment of effective and certified teachers the biggest need? Funding then should be allocated there. But if it's not, you've got to really look at those needs in order to know where to budget these funds. And then the final thing is, how are you going to do it? This is where you would make the decision to what type of funding to use. Is it something Title II Part A can pay for? It may be something else. There may be a grant available. There may be another federal program available. But this is the heart of that plan, deciding where you want, what your needs are, and then what strategies are available to make it happen. And then how are you going to fund those strategies? This is just a quick shot of how this might look informally, just jotting them down on chart paper, or actually, laying it out where you can talk about the need, talk about the strategy, and then decide how that strategy will be funded. Also, that something that needs to be in place is the evaluation of this. You're doing it, but how do you know it's working? So there does, in addition to addressing the needs, you also want to have some type of reflection where you can monitor it at certain points to make sure what you're doing is effective. If it is, great, keep doing it. If it's not, make some adjustments. Shareholder consultation is a very big part of all federal programs, and Title II Part A is no different. So we find a lot that central office staff, the communication there is very strong. Principals often are included in that as well. What we do find a lot, however, is that parents and community members are not as well represented. That's not always the easiest thing to do. You can reach out to them, and that doesn't necessarily mean that that guarantees their participation. But I think one thing this last year and a half has shown us is that there are very innovative ways to communicate with people that we didn't maybe utilize prior to that. So think about, definitely email communication, surveys, having, maybe informal surveys and things on your website, setting up virtual meetings, and then, the old school PTA, PTO meetings. Keep your shareholders informed and give them an opportunity to participate in this decision making. That is a requirement of federal programs, but it is also it's a good thing to do within the district in terms of having credibility, that families know you're concerned about their child and that you want their input. So try to schedule these meetings regularly, and then again, always allow everyone to be heard. So just kind of an overview of planning, a needs assessment. Where is that data going to come from? Certainly within your CDIP and CSIPs test scores, but test scores aren't everything. You want to look at attendance data, enrollment data, the certification and experience levels of your staff, different surveys. You want to pull all that in so you can really pinpoint the biggest needs of the district and prioritize them. Then you want to make that plan. Is professional learning the way to go? Is it going to be recruitment or retention? Do our teachers need some other career pathway choices? Are our students' needs being met by the most effective teachers we have? And then what other federal programs might benefit us, might help us meet our needs? You want to look at it holistically so those needs can be met. And then finally, am I including all my shareholders? So that's not just people in the district office, and it's not just people in the school administrative roles or teachers. That also includes your finance officers, your other staff members at the district, parents, community members, and so forth. Make sure they're all included in the decision making. Another group that there should also be very strong ongoing consultation is with your participating non-public schools. In the early spring, you contact the non-public school population, and those that choose to participate, you need to make sure that you consult with them just more than the initial consultation. And again, this doesn't have to be face-to-face. It can be a phone call, it can be an email, but make sure you're touching base with them. If you notice they have an excessive amount of funds that haven't been used or spent yet, you want to contact them and see if you can help them with their needs. if you have things going on in the district that you think might meet their needs, give them a call and invite them in. So we had met with a district that had a very, I think, important point on this in terms of supporting the non-public schools. I mean, it is required, it is the right thing to do, but they also commented that within the some of the homeschools and the non-public elementary schools, those students would eventually be transitioning into the public district. And so they felt, that strong obligation to really make sure those staff members had the same opportunities as the staff members in the public schools. So they did that by, pretty frequent consultation, and they felt like it really paid, it was a win-win for both. And so just keep that in mind, and then also make sure that the signed participation packets are uploaded into GMAP. So thinking about collaboration, you've got, you certainly your non-public school, you're working with the community, your schools and your families. There's another collaborative relationship that we like to point out that we've also noticed does have an impact on program implementation, and that is the work between the finance officer and the Title II coordinator. When we had this training live, we did invite finance officers, and we had several to attend, and we really appreciate that. And we encourage you on the recorded version maybe to sit down with your finance officer, just to familiarize them with Title II Part A intent. And, I would recommend the same thing with other federal programs as well. But you both have areas of expertise, and sometimes a finance officer may be unaware of what a fund is used for. And on paper, it looks one way, but in fact, it is, the intent may be something different. Likewise, in Title II, you are familiar with the programmatic side, but there may be some cost center codes that don't necessarily align with what the funds are being used for. So we notice that mainly when we monitor and we have a munis in front of us and things don't necessarily align, and typically it's just because there's been a little miscommunication. So we do encourage you all to work together and maybe schedule regular meetings throughout the year, maybe even just quarterly, but to just make sure everything's still aligned. And if not, a slight revision may need to be made in the Title II application, or some changes may need to be made in the munis. But just keeping those aligned is really important towards a successful program. Documentation is a big part of all federal programs, and really a part of everything. And that sounds kind of like a smart aleck comment, but a quote that I saw many places when I was kind of looking for things like that, and that is, if it's not documented, it really doesn't exist. And we found this not only in working with local districts, but we were audited last summer by the federal government, and I really realized the importance of documentation, because you can, we had this conversation and we did this, but you need to have evidence. And it is a record of your work. It is a way kind of to show checks and balances, but it's also an advertisement of your work. And that's a good thing. You want to show, yes, we are doing this, and we have, the documentation to show that. So keep that in mind, especially when you are consulting with your non-public schools and your parents and community members. Document that, that conversation or that communication in some way. What Title II Part A monitoring looks like is very similar to what you would experience across other programs. We really do look at it as an opportunity to celebrate what you're doing, and then also a chance to see how you can grow. And again, we experienced that same thing last summer with the federal audit, and we have tried to model that when we work with you. So desk monitoring for Title II occurs in October through December, and then consolidated monitoring is January through April. For Title II Part A purposes, we do have a self-monitoring tool that's in our handbook, and we always send that to you prior to monitoring to kind of help you. It's like a rubric, kind of step by step, what we look at, and also recommendations on how you can document that. But these are the four main areas that we look at. And the first one is teacher certification, just to ensure that everyone in the district is appropriately certified. And if not, that steps are in place to help support those that population and towards becoming appropriately certified. We look at the Title II program in terms of development, implementation, and evaluation. How are you putting this together? Is there a plan in place? Are you working from a needs assessment? Are you using those needs to implement strategies and whatnot to meet them? And then are you evaluating that for effectiveness? And if not, are you making changes along the way as needed? We look at the financial management and kind of like what I said earlier, just making sure that what's in your approved application is also what is showing up in your munis reports in the district. And then finally, the equitable services. Are you consulting with your participating non-public schools, and are they aware of the policies and things surrounding the Title II Part A funds? So this is a very keyword suggested timeline as you think about Title II Part A throughout the year. In the winter and early spring, we left this kind of open, for the flexibility within each district. This is when you should be talking to your shareholders, looking at data, and putting that needs assessment together. We also think this is a really good time of year to send those participation letters to your non-public schools. Throughout the spring, you want to keep that consultation going. And then just as a suggestion, maybe go ahead and sketch out some regular meeting times to consult with your non-public administrators for the upcoming year. And this could be simply as just putting some reminders in your calendars to check, just to touch base with them and see how everything's going. Late summer and spring, that's when the GMAP budgets and applications are submitted. So during the summer, those funds become available. And another suggestion is to schedule regular times to evaluate your program. So this may be, again, just some reminders on dedicating some days where you look into it, touch base with, who is participating in the programs, is the spending and the implementation aligning with your intentions. And if not, again, that's, you want to work towards that continuous improvement. Revisions may need to be made, or hopefully it is working in the way that it was intended. And so, again, you can fine tune that or continue as you are, but you just want to kind of check that pulse. And then finally, in the fall, the allocations usually are uploaded in mid-October, and so they'll need to be just a slight revision in that in your application. But here's the reminder for the fall. Check in with your shareholders and again with your non-public school administrators. Schedule some times for them, and then also schedule some regular times to meet with your finance officer, again, just to keep your thumb on the pulse of the program. So finally, just want to take a look at a few screenshots of the GMAP application. At the time of this webinar, the applications were not open, but there have been no major changes for Title II Part A. So hopefully this will be just a refresher. If you are new to your role in Title II Part A and need any help with this again, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us on the Title II Part A team. So the very first section of our application is on the supportive effective instruction. You'll see there that there's a place to indicate what data you used for your needs assessment. There's a narrative box to just briefly describe what your needs are for the district, and then a description of how you're going to meet those needs, and yet that you're also being sure to include strategies to cover the standards, content standards for Kentucky, and how you are building capacity within your district for teachers and administrators, and then how the program will be regularly evaluated. The next section on this page talks about the distribution of funds. This is a slight change, and the only thing that this is going to do is when one of or more of these are selected, a narrative box will appear, and we're just asking for a brief description of how the district is going to approach that. Here you will indicate the shareholders that have been included in your Title II Part A plan, and here you will indicate that the funds being requested are supplementing what you already do and not supplanting. The second page concerns personnel details. The very first question is regarding the certification of district staff. If everyone in the district has the appropriate certification, you just check yes and go on. If not, you need to, certainly be transparent about that. But also we ask you to upload some information on how that is being addressed. So this may be, through Title II Part A funds, it may be through some other means, but we do definitely want to have information on how any non-certified or emergency certified staff are being supported by the district. The middle section of that page, this would be if any staff members are being paid out of Title II funds in the district. This could include district instructional coaches. This might be part of your coordinator's salary. Anything like that, you would list the head count and then what the full-time equivalency of that salary would look like. If you don't have staff being paid out of Title II funds, then you would leave this blank. And then the last section of this page would be instructional coaches at the school level or class size reduction staff. If it is class size reduction staff, we do ask that you explain how this is meeting a district need, that what the student to teacher ratio is as a result of this. And again, we also ask that you include evidence if this strategy has been used before on how that it has been an effective strategy for students. And please also note that any staff being utilized for class size reduction does need to have appropriate certification for the grade level and content to which they're assigned. The Equitable Services page is very self-explanatory, and when you enter your enrollment figures in here, it will self-populate. If you do not have any participating non-public schools, you would just check this no, and it would take you to the next page. If you do, there is a drop-down list here for the name of the school, the enrollment, the date of consultation, and then a description of the services that will be provided them. The budget section, again, has not changed from last year, but because it is not open yet, I was not able to pull this up with a practice budget, but I have pulled a few things off, just some screenshots from last year that'll hopefully provide a little help with that. I do want to let you know that all of our help pages have been reviewed and hopefully enhanced for this year, as well as the consolidated checklist within the GMAP application. So hopefully we've provided, the information that can help you with these questions. But again, don't hesitate to call us at any point during the application. So you have, you'll have the two budgets, one for your public and then one for your non-public if you have participating schools. I do want to point out that in GMAP, there is a feature that you can copy your FY21 budget and bring it into FY22. Now, that is not to say that it needs to be identical, because each year your needs are going to change. But it's a helpful feature in just having that framework set up, and then you can modify what needs to be taken out, what needs to be added, and so forth. So you can upload this from Excel, and then we had a lot of positive feedback last year that it was a pretty easy thing to maneuver. So within the GMAP help, we definitely want to point that out. That's going to be that blue box to the left. You have several different things to choose from, but here are those help pages, and those will be specific to the page that you're on. You also have KDE resources, where there's a lot of information that can be found. And then also a reports feature. So when you are meeting with shareholders, or you're meeting with district people or principals, there's some really nice reports that you can run off here that can show where funding is going for what particular project. And that's not just for Title II Part A, it's for the whole consolidated process. So if you do go into KDE resources, you will find this and this GMAP training. When you choose that, you will find, whoopsie, sorry. There we go. You will find this budget features dropped on the drop-down list. That is where you'll find a step-by-step manual with pictures on how to copy last year's budget, how to upload a budget from Excel, and so forth. Also within your budget, you're going to have a drop down of all the allowable cost codes. So if it doesn't appear on this list, it does not belong in the application. And then also you're going to find what we call tags. Formerly, we had a district set-aside section and a school set-aside section in the application. We took that out, and you can do this now all through the budget. So when you are putting your budget together and you have an expenditure, let's say for an instructional coach, you'll explain that in the narrative and how that links back to your needs. And then you'll find the appropriate tag over here and quote unquote tag it. So that lets us know if it is a school set aside or a district set aside expenditure. These are just a few considerations to think about when you're going through your application. And typically, what we see the most of that might require a question or additional clarification. And that is, does the application reflect the current needs of the district? Does your budget align with those needs? If your needs center around mathematics, is that reflected in your budget? And do your narratives explain the expenditure? Are your codes allowable within Title II Part A? And then also, do the narratives align with the codes? This is another, I think, good reason to sit down with your finance officer when you are working on this and, kind of navigate through it together. These are the typical revision requests that we send back. And again, a lot of that goes with misalignment. What your needs show and your budget should reflect one another. Sometimes a lack of information, and we may request a little bit more clarification, and you want to make sure your Equitable Services packet is uploaded, and you want to make sure that you can document that shareholders have been involved. And then if we find an unallowable expenditure, we'll, need some revisions regarding that. So just in reflection, we want to think about Title II Part A kind of in three big areas. The main thing is it's about how to do things in terms to support effective instruction. So how can you help teachers and leaders be effective both in instruction and, just in the profession in general? If it's a need, how can your district recruit and support and retain the effective staff that students need? And finally, if it's a need, how can you use these funds to make sure effective teachers are working with students of the highest needs? So we do ask that you either access this link or use the QR code just to answer a brief survey for us. That'll help us provide service for you based on your needs. And also, if you need an ELA credit for participating in this is also available through this link. And then finally, I want to provide you with the Title II team information. If you've been with us a while, you probably are familiar with your consultant, but that is just a little map and a list. We typically service a region, but again, we're all available to answer any questions at any time. So thank you again for participating in this webinar. We hope it's been informative, and please feel free to reach out to any of us with any questions or needs that you may have. Thank you.